My name is Rebecca and I'll be your safari guide today. A few reminders as we head out. Please be sure to remain seated, keeping all hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the truck at all times. We're going to be headed into the Harambe Wildlife Reserve. And this reserve was opened back in 1971 as a way to protect our local animals. Above you, you'll see a spotting guide with some of the animals that we might see today. Now, we might not see all of them, but we'll do our best to see many of them. If you have your cameras, feel free to take pictures. Just be sure to hold on to those cameras, as we can't stop for anything that falls out of the truck. As we're headed into the Harambe Wildlife Reserve, we're going to be headed into the Little Ituri Forest, home to some of the shyer, more reclusive animals. Forest animals, they also rely heavily on their coloration as their main defense, so sometimes they can blend in pretty well with their surroundings. Just keep your eyes out though, and we're sure to spot them.
Oh, there.
Now as we enter the reserve, crossing the road to the left-hand side, we see quite a few different antelope. Now the lighter colored ones without the horns, those are greater kudu. Those are females, as the males have long, spiral, 6-foot horns. The darker colored ones with the horns, those are bongos. Now bongos are considered the ghost of the forest, as they're very rarely seen unless you're in a reserve like ours. Both males and females have those long horns that curve back to help them to go through the dense forest. Over on the right-hand side, you can also find an okapi. Now, at first glance, the okapi may look like it's related to a zebra. However, its closest relative is actually the giraffe. Now, both the giraffe and the okapi have long prehensile tongues they can use to stick out and grab onto those leaves and branches to pull those items back into their mouth. On the left-hand side, keep an eye out for the black rhinoceros. Black rhinos can get up to 3,000 pounds. And even though there's all these trees and rocks out here, they can charge at about 35 miles per hour. Now they too do blend in very well with their surroundings. There's a rhino up in those rocks, a little bit lighter colored than the rocks. Has blended very well. Now that is one of less than 5,000 black rhinoceros left in the world today. And that's due to poaching. Now they have been poached to near extinction for their horns, which are made up of keratin, just like our hair and our fingernails.
Nope.
So
don't
really
see
not
it.
that scientific or medicinally unique.
Colored thing. It's like light.
Oh. Okay, I see it. Wow.
Now also on the left
It was
hand
a rock.
side, these tall black and white
Looks
birds.
like it's a rock.
These are saddle-billed storks. Now the saddle-billed stork can get about 5 feet tall with a wingspan up to 9 feet wide. They are primarily solitary, so you usually only see 1 or 2 of them in an area. Now from here, we're gonna head over to the Safi River. And the Safi River is our best chance to see the Nile hippopotamus. Now, one very important thing to keep in mind when looking for a hippopotamus is to be sure to look not just up on land, but also down in the water, as hippos will usually spend the majority of their time in the water to escape that hot sun, oftentimes remaining fully submerged for up to 8 minutes at a time. Now, the hippos, they'll come out a little bit more frequently at dusk and throughout the evening to do a lot of grazing along the banks. Now, hippos, they are herbivores, and they'll eat an average of about 80 to 90 pounds of plants and vegetation each day, which is a relatively small amount for their large size, as they can get up to about 5,500 pounds. Now, the larger, lighter colored birds that we see, these are pink-backed pelicans, one of 8 pelican species. During their mating season, the plumage on their back will turn to a nice light pink shade. At their breeding sites, you'll find them in pairs, with between 50 and 200 pairs at a single site. Now, if you do see the hippos down in the water, you'll notice that they don't swim through the water like a lot of other animals, but they can actually walk or run across the bottom of the river. Now, up on the bank there, for those of you on the left-hand side, you can see that little baby hippo. Now, when the baby hippos are born, they're about 80 pounds or so. Now, that one was born over the summer, about 6 months old or so. Just be sure you remain seated the whole time for me. Now, also on the left-hand side, you can see the Nile crocodiles. Nile crocodiles can average about 16 feet in length and 500 pounds.
But where are the alligators?
Now, those crocodiles have super powerful jaws, capable of crushing bones. The majority of their diet does consist of fish. However, they will sometimes take down larger animals like zebras and wildebeest. Now, they won't eat those large meals every day, usually just about once a week or so. And when they eat those large meals, they can consume up to half their body weight at one time. Now, we are going to be headed on to the savannas, home to many of our animals. And the savannas are also home to a very distinct wet and dry season. Now, this tree on the right-hand side, this is a baobab tree. And it's great for that dry season, as it'll use that extra wide trunk to store large amounts of water. It can also remain leafless for about 9 months out of the year, just to conserve water. Now, a lot of the animals out on the savanna, they'll actually migrate along with those wet seasons, as that's where they're best able to find their food.
Giraffe.
Now, as we enter the reserve, over on the right-hand side, a little bit further back, you can see the Hartman's Mountain zebra. Now, when a baby zebra is born, its legs are almost as long as mom's. It's going to be able to stand up and walk and join its herd within about 15 to 20 minutes of birth. Now, first off its born, though, it's going to imprint on mom and memorize her stripe pattern. It'll only feed from her, and it'll stay with her for about the first year of its life. Now, when a baby giraffe is born, it's approximately 6 feet tall, and it can stand up and walk and join its herd within about an hour of birth. Now, over on the left-hand side, keep an eye out for the African wild dogs. Now, these wild dogs, they may look a bit like your domesticated dog. However, they are different. They actually only have 4 toes. And due to that unique coat coloration, they're oftentimes called the painted dog. And also here on the left-hand side, a little bit further back, laying down, those are the sable antelope. If you look at the horns on the sable antelope, you'll notice that they're curved back in a way to really help deter an animal like a lion from jumping up on their back. A little bit closer to the truck, we have some wildebeest. Now, during the migration of the wildebeest, they will form a very large group of about 1.5 million animals, and they'll migrate between 500 and 1,000 miles across Africa. Now, these large structures that we're passing by, these are termite mounds. And these termite mounds are beneficial to more animals than just the termites. The larger animals will use them as scratching posts, while some of the smaller animals can use them as lookout posts. Now, this tall Maasai giraffe, they definitely don't need a lookout post. Along with being about 18 to 20 feet tall, they do have excellent eyesight, so they're able to keep a really good lookout over the savanna, even spotting animals that may be coming up in those tall grasses. Now, very rarely will you see a giraffe sitting down or laying down. They almost always like to remain standing, ready to get away from any predators or any danger in the area. Now, the giraffe, they'll even sleep standing up, and they don't sleep very much during the day, usually just about a half an hour or so each day. Now, out in the savannas ahead of us, it looks like we've got some little springbok. Now, springbok are considered in the top 10 fastest land animals, as they're able to speed across the savannas at about 50 to 60 miles per hour. They can also spring up into the air about 6 feet, and if they happen to spring while they're running, they can leap about 13 feet across. Now, the springbok are the national symbol of South Africa, so oftentimes you'll see them used as the sports team's mascots and in their logos. Now, if the giraffe want to, they can sprint away at about 30 to 35 miles per hour for very short distances. Usually if you see a giraffe running though, they're cruising along at about 10 miles per hour or so. Now, as we head through this next area, be sure to keep an eye out on the right-hand side for the African elephants. And it looks like there's some monkeys over on the left-hand side. Now, those monkeys, those are mandrills. And mandrills are the largest species of monkey. Now, the male mandrills, they can get up to about 100 pounds. Females only about 30 pounds or so. And the little ones quite a bit smaller. Now, one neat thing about the mandrills, they actually have a little pouch in their cheek, and they can use that to store snacks for later. Now, oftentimes when we see the elephants, they are doing something with their trunks. Eating, drinking, picking up logs, or even reaching tall branches. Now, sometimes we'll even see the elephants picking up clumps of dirt and tossing that up onto their backs. Now, they don't do that just to play. Elephants actually have very sensitive skin, so that dirt will act as kind of a natural sunscreen to help protect them. Now, the elephants, they do have a couple other ways that they can cool down during some of the hotter days. They can flap their ears. By flapping their ears, they help to circulate air over the blood vessels on the back of their ears, which in turn helps to lower their body temperature and keep them a bit cooler. They can also go down into the water and splash around a bit. Elephants are excellent swimmers, and they do enjoy the water. As we head through the red clay pits here, I do see signs of more elephant activity. There's some footprints in the ground, as well as those tusk marks there in the red clay. Now, those tusk marks, they'll get left behind as the elephants will actually eat that red clay to gain some different beneficial minerals and nutrients, sometimes not found in their food. Elephants are herbivores, and they'll eat an average of about 300 to 400 pounds of plants and vegetation each day. Now, they're not going to stop at just the leaves and the grasses. They'll sometimes even eat small trees. Oftentimes when we see a group of elephants out here, there's a matriarch or an older female who's in charge, and then any of the other mothers and their offspring. Now, when male elephants become teenagers, they'll oftentimes leave the group, either going off on their own or forming or joining a bachelor group. Both male and female African elephants have those long ivory tusks, and unfortunately this does make them both a target for those poachers. Elephants have also been losing a lot of their habitat just due to human activity. And that's from us expanding our areas to farming and even mining.
Oh my god.
They can reach pretty high up there. Now, right now we are headed past one of the elephants' watering holes. They'll come down here to grab a drink or even go for a swim. On the left-hand side, you can see the greater flamingos. And greater flamingos are the largest species of flamingo, and they get that pink coloration from the different foods that they eat. Now, they are filter feeders, so you'll see them with their heads below water, kind of stomping their feet. That helps to loosen their food. And then their beaks are formed in a way that will filter out all of the sand and water, leaving just their food behind. Now, if you see some of those flamingos without that pink coloration, more of a gray and a black and white, those are juveniles. They won't get that pink coloration until they're about 2 years old. Here on the left-hand side, we found some white rhinos. Now, white rhinos are a lot larger than the black rhino that we saw earlier, getting up to about 4,000 to 5,000 pounds. Looks like that little guy's still got a bit more growing to do. Probably only a little bit over a year old. Now, white rhinos are also a lot more social than the black rhino. They prefer to be in pairs or in small groups. Now, a group of rhinos is called a crash. We'll have to keep our eyes out. There probably are some more rhinos in the area. Now, as you probably noticed, the white rhinos, they're not white, but they are named for the Afrikaans word "weit," which means wide. They have a much wider top lip than many other rhinoceros species. And this is due to what they like to eat. They like to eat a lot of grasses and softer items closer to the ground. As we head around this corner here, on the left-hand side, keep an eye out for cheetahs. They're oftentimes spotted in this area, and cheetahs are the fastest land animals, capable of reaching speeds of up to 60 miles per hour in just 3 seconds. Now, they can't maintain those speeds for very far distances. They do need periods to rest. Their spots and their coloration help them to blend in very well with their surroundings. Now, cheetahs are also one of the few large cats that'll do the majority of their hunting during the day. This is actually due to their eyesight. They can see much, much better in the daylight than they can at night. Now, these large rocks in front of us, these are the Kopi rocks. And these rocks are great. They allow the animals to get up nice and high, get a really good look out over the savanna. Now, they're also loved by another one of the big cats, the African lions. Now, oftentimes when we see the lions, they are taking a nap, like he is now. The lions will typically sleep for about 16 to 20 hours each day. Now, the lions, they do tend to be a little bit more active at night, because that's when they'll do a lot of their hunting, for very similar reasons that the cheetahs hunt during the day. Now, during the day, the lion's eyesight, it's pretty similar to ours. However, at night, they can see about 5 to 6 times better than they can during the day. Now, lions are one of the few large cats that will do the majority of their hunting as a group. Those female lionesses, they'll go out and they'll take down food for the entire pride. Meanwhile, the male lion, he's in charge of guarding their territory, protecting and defending the pride. Looks like she's up there keeping an eye on something. On the left-hand side over here, looks like we found some warthogs. Now, warthogs are one of the largest burrowing animals. They'll use those razor-sharp tusks either for digging their own burrows or expanding the burrows of other animals. Now, when they go to sleep at night, they back into their burrows. So those tusks are always facing forward, always ready to defend themselves. Now, it looks like we've also got some ostriches up here on the left-hand side. Ostrich are the tallest flightless birds. They'll use those large wings not for flying, but for changing directions as they speed across the savannas. And they can run pretty quickly, at about 35 to 40 miles per hour. Now, it looks like we've also got some ostrich eggs on the ground over there. Now, you'll notice those eggs, they too are pretty large. One ostrich egg is the equivalent to about 2 dozen chicken eggs.
Oh.
Now, even though those eggs aren't in a big fancy nest and the ostrich aren't right there with them at all times, they are still protected. They have a super strong shell, capable of withstanding even the weight of a human. Now, throughout the day, the dominant male and female ostrich, they will be by to check on those eggs, staying a bit closer once they start to hatch. Now, as we head back towards the village, we are going to be passing one of the wardens' posts. And our wardens, they do all kinds of things to help out the animals, from stopping those poachers to helping the locals learn to live better with the animals in their area. Now, one of their most recent projects, has been getting these little Nigerian dwarf goats. And these little goats, they are full grown. And they've been domesticated worldwide for their dairy usage. Now each little goat can produce up to 2 pints of milk a day, giving the villagers something to drink as well as something to sell. Now a lot of times the farmers, they'll put a goat or two into their pasture, as those goats are able to eat a lot of the thorny bushes and sticks and vegetation that many other animals just don't want to eat. Now a lot of their favorite activities are kind of playing and stuff like that. A lot of times it'll look like they're fighting, but they're actually just playing. Now I want to thank everyone for joining me out on safari today. We got to see a lot of really cool animals. Hopefully we saw some of your favorite animals, or maybe we even saw some that you've never seen before. Either way, one fun thing that you can do to help those animals out is just to learn more about them. You might want to learn what their favorite foods are, or what kind of weather they like the best. As you're learning more about them, you might even find some ways to help them out that you didn't even realize. Did you know that by recycling your cell phones and electronics, you can actually help out the elephants? As they live in an area where they're losing a lot of their habitat due to mining for a metallic ore called coltan. The more we recycle those items, the less mining that they have to do, and the more habitat that the elephants, the mandrills, okapi, and so many other animals get to keep. Now while you're here in Harambe today, I definitely recommend you check out Gorilla Falls. There you'll be able to see many more of our amazing African animals, including the gorillas, the meerkats. Now there's a lot of them, and it is a walking trail, so you can stop and watch those animals for as long as you'd like. Now here in Harambe, we don't like to say goodbye, but instead Kwa Harini, which means go well. So Kwa Harini, everyone. Now if we have any wilderness explorers on board today, you have been riding Simba 1.